And you may go.
Many of you may have heard of this great fight called the Boston Massacre. This is a well-known street fight that also occurred on March 5th, 1770. The fight took place between the American mob and a troop of British soldiers. There was much firing of arms, throwing of snowballs, sticks, and other objects at each other, leaving several colonists killed. This abrupt controversy led to an assortment of trials and tribulations that we know today between the Americans and the British. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Patriot. Mr. Patriot, could you please state your name and why you are here today?
I am American. I will be defending the American side of this whole fight.
Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions so you can present your case. Is there enough info that really proved to the jury to make the assumption of these actions to be non-guilty?
No, the information that was provided to the jury was not enough information, concise information, to prove that the British soldiers were innocent. There were clear points, sites, and depositions from both sides stating that some clearly heard Captain Preston to have said fire, while others informed deposition that it was not clear on what the Captain Preston's intent to be said.
Okay, well then, did John Adams really represent the British for their innocence, or because he wanted to keep down the confusion of it all?
John Adams represented the British and tried to tell the Americans that they were there to protect. At this time, they were there so there wouldn't be an outbreak between the colonies, which still backfired because Captain Preston and Boston led to the Revolutionary War.
Okay, well, do you feel that the impact of Boston Massacre and what it has on the lives of the Americans were rightly justified and taken care of?
No, the impact of the Boston Massacre, which led to the Revolutionary War, which is cited as a very major event in this history of the United States of America, was not really dealt with the ruling of the British soldiers and rightly acclaimed for the damage, horror, and threat that was caused to the American people.
Okay, and lastly, do you feel, or do these statements show that Captain Preston initiated his attacks negatively?
Yes, these statements are proof of the anger and rare of Captain Preston and how he informed his soldiers to be negative actions to the American colonies, in which these occasions formed to open fire to the Americans.
Okay, we'll take that in consideration, and thank you, Mr. Patriot. Next, I will call Mr. Redcoat to the stand, please. Mr. Redcoat, could you please state your name and the reason why you're here?
My name is Mr. Redcoat, and I am here to represent the British in the trial of the Boston Massacre.
Okay, and I'm going to be asking you the same questions.
Okay.
Do you think there is enough info that really proved the jury to make the assumption of these actions of not guilty?
I do believe that because in the trial, the British were proven not guilty, and I believe that this is a reasonable answer for them. There are many testimonies by eyewitnesses that show that the British were firing in self-defense and not to kill. They were being threatened. One man named Theodore Bliss said, "I saw the people throw snowballs at the soldiers and saw a stick about 3 feet long strike a soldier upon the right. He sallied and then fired. Then the others fast after one another. 1 or 2 snowballs hit the soldier. The stick struck another before firing. I know not whether he sallied on account of the stick or whether he stepped back to make ready." But see, when people think of snowballs, it's just little puff flouters hitting them. But in reality, this was just after winter time, early spring in March, and they were throwing ice, chunks of ice about this big. And that can really hurt someone, especially when you're at point-blank range of each other. And a 3-foot stick in the thaw, frozen day can be much more painful, especially one attacked by a full-grown man. Another man named Richard Palm said, "I saw something resembling snow or ice strike the grenadier on the captain's right hand. He instantly stepped back on 1 foot and fired the first gun." Again, he was threatened, and so he fired in self-defense in order to scare off the mob. But unfortunately, this led to the firing of more arms and more casualties happened. Even Captain Thomas Preston stated, "The mob still increased and were outrageous, striking their clubs or sticks against another, and calling out, 'Come on, you rascals, you bloody backs, you lobster scoundrels, fire, I dare you, God darn you, fire and be damned, no, you dare not.' And much more such language was used. One of the soldiers, having received a severe blow with a stick, stepped a little to one side and instantly fired. Again, he was threatened. On this, a general attack was made on the men by a great number of heavy clubs and snowballs being thrown at them, by which all at the same time from behind calling out, 'Darn you bloods, why don't you fire?' Instantly, 3 or 4 of the soldiers fired. Again, they were being provoked. They were being threatened. One of the witness accounts, one of the men who were actually shot and was killed, they questioned a surgeon of his. And this man came from, the one who was killed came from Ireland. And in Ireland around this time, there were much riots similar to these between the Catholic Irish and the Protestant British because of their religion. And in many cases, riots would form, much like the Boston Massacre. And when the surgeon told the Irishman's last words, in which he basically summarized that he'd seen in Ireland groups of British succumb and fire upon much less provocation from riots, and they would shoot much sooner. But these soldiers held they bore much more than any other group he'd ever seen. And when asked about the man who shot him, he said that he forgave that man for he was shooting in self-defense.
Okay. Well, do you think John Adams was there to represent British for your innocence, or just to keep the confusion down?
I believe John Adams was there for the British innocence. No other lawyer in the American colonists wanted to support the British. They all were scared because of the huge support towards the British being guilty. But the Crown called them up and told them that if you basically don't do this, we're probably going to bring the trial back to England and give them a more fair trial. And John Adams believed in a fair trial because he believed that in the rights of every English citizen, that everyone deserves a fair trial.
And do you feel that the impact was rightly justified against the Americans, or do you think it was taken care of the right way?
I think it was taken care of the right way, and it did end up leading to the American Revolution. But these men were given a fair trial, and though 2 were convicted of manslaughter, they were given a second chance. And because these men were fighting in self-defense because of the riots that were attacking them. And I believe that because they were fighting in self-defense and they were proven innocent of that, it was given a fair trial.
And do you show that the statements of Captain Preston initiated his attacks negatively?
I do not believe that Captain Preston initiated his attacks negatively. For one, the reason why the British went out there was because there was a guard out there being abused by a mob for around 30 minutes, and Captain Preston waited 30 minutes before he decided to go out there and rescue that one sentry out in front of the courthouse. And although many witnesses say that he did call out for his troops to fire, many other witnesses say otherwise. Many were close enough to him that they could easily have heard him playing fire, but none of them heard it from him. One actually heard somebody say fire behind him. And then another interesting account by Jane Whitehouse. A man came behind the soldiers, walked backwards and forwards, encouraging them to fire. The man touched one of the soldiers upon the back and said, "Fire, by God, I'll stand by it." He was dressed in dark-colored clothes. He did not look like an officer. The man fired directly on the word and the clap on the shoulder. I am positive the man was not the captain. I am sure he gave no orders. So not only was the captain not the one who gave fire, but there was a possibility that another man tried to convince the soldiers to shoot and start a massacre.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Redcoat.
So as you can see, there was a lot of controversy regarding the Boston Massacre. There are 2 different sides to the story, but there is only one correct. The street fight left several men dead and an empty trial, awaiting to hear the truth behind it all to carry on justice.
Now I'm going to let everybody deliberate on who should be guilty or not guilty. And just for whether you want the British or the American to be guilty on your little piece of paper.